There's a kind of pain that doesn't heal because you keep waiting for someone else to fix it. You replay the conversation at night, rehearsing the apology you know may never come. You tell yourself, once they say sorry, I'll finally breathe again, finally feel whole. But what if that day never arrives? What happens to the years you spent waiting? You check your phone, nothing. You check again tomorrow, still nothing. The silence grows heavier. Somewhere inside you, a door stays open, hoping they'll walk back through it one day. You've grown so good at waiting, you forgot you were allowed to simply walk away. What if healing was never theirs to give? What if it was yours all along? There's an old story, passed down through generations, about a woman who learned this truth. Her name was Aanya, and she waited longer than anyone in her village ever had. Her waiting began with a single lie, spoken by someone she trusted with her whole heart. What she discovered after years of silence would change the way she understood forgiveness forever. This is her story, but really it is also yours if you let it be. Stay with me. By the end, you may finally understand why the wisest never wait. Not because they don't feel pain, but because they refuse to let it own them. Somewhere, right now, you are waiting for words that may never be spoken to you. This story will not give you those words. It will give you something stronger instead, a way to close the door yourself, gently, without needing anyone's permission to do so. Take a breath, let your shoulders drop. For the next few minutes, just listen closely. This is the story of the wisest people and why they never wait for sorry. In a village cradled between green mountains, there lived a young weaver named Aanya. Her hands moved like music across the loom, turning thread into stories of color. Every shawl she made carried a piece of her heart, woven thread by careful thread. The villagers said her cloth could warm a person even in the coldest winter night. Aanya lived simply in a small stone house beside the river with her loom and dreams. Her closest friend was Rohan, the potter's son, who she had known since childhood. They had grown up together, climbing the same hills, sharing the same secrets and laughter. Aanya trusted Rohan with everything, her hopes, her fears, even her plans to leave the village. It was a secret dream, fragile and new, one she had only shared with Rohan. One evening, by the river, she told him everything, her eyes bright with quiet hope. He smiled and promised her secret was safe, sealed between them like an old vow. But promises, even sincere ones, can crumble under the weight of envy and fear. Days later, the whole village somehow knew of Anya's plan to leave for the city. Rumors twisted her dream into something selfish, something that betrayed the village that raised her. Aanya could not understand how her private hope had become public gossip overnight. Then she learned the truth. Rohan had told others, framing her dream as abandonment. Her heart, once open and trusting, closed like a door slammed shut by wind. She stopped speaking to him. She stopped speaking to almost everyone, drawing into herself. Her loom sat untouched, the threads gathered dust, the colors dimming with each silent day. Every morning she watched the village path, half hoping Rohan would come and make it right. Every evening she went to sleep disappointed, the apology she needed nowhere in sight. Weeks passed, then months. The seasons changed, but Anya's waiting never did. She told herself, the moment he says sorry, I will forgive him and feel free again. But Rohan, ashamed and unsure how to face her, only grew more distant himself. The village watched this quiet stalemate, two old friends frozen by pride and pain. Anya's mother worried for her daughter, who once laughed easily, now carried such heaviness. She suggested Anya visit the old woman who lived at the edge of the forest. "They call her Devika," her mother said. "She has a way of mending broken things." Anya hesitated, but the weight in her chest had grown too heavy to carry alone. Devika's hut sat at the edge of the forest, half hidden by jasmine and wild moss. She was old, older than anyone could remember. Her eyes clouded but strangely full of light. Some called her a healer, others called her a storyteller. The wisest called them both. Anya arrived at dusk, unsure why her feet had carried her so far from home. Devika did not ask why she had come. She simply offered her a cup of tea. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling softly between their quiet thoughts. Finally, Anya spoke, her voice trembling as she told Devika of Rohan's betrayal. She spoke of the waiting, the empty path, the apology that never seemed to arrive. Devika listened without interrupting, her weathered hands folded gently in her lap. When Anya finished, the old woman was quiet for a long moment, watching the flames. Then she said the words that would echo in Anya's mind for years to come. "A wound kept open by waiting never heals. Only the one who closes it calls it healed." Anya frowned. "But he is the one who hurt me. Shouldn't he be the one to fix it?" Devika smiled gently. Healing was never his to give. It was always yours to take. Anya did not understand, not yet. The words felt too large for her small, tired heart. "Stay with me a while," Devika offered. "I will show you what I mean in time." Anya agreed, though she could not yet imagine what lessons waited for her in that forest. In the days that followed, Devika gave her small tasks, simple chores around the hut. Each task, Anya would later realize, carried a lesson hidden quietly beneath its surface. And so her true education began, far from the village, far from her waiting heart. The first morning, Devika handed Anya a bowl shattered into many uneven pieces. "Mend it," she said simply, and walked away before Anya could ask a single question. Anya stared at the pieces, frustrated. "How can I fix what I did not break?" She almost left the pieces scattered, almost walked away from the impossible task entirely. But something in her, stubborn and quiet, made her sit down and begin the work. She gathered golden resin as Devika had shown her and carefully began joining the cracks. Her hands, so used to weaving, found a strange comfort in this slower, patient mending. Hours passed. The bowl slowly came together, seams glowing gold where the breaks had been. When Devika returned, she studied the bowl, then looked at Anya with knowing eyes. The bowl did not need its breaker's hands to become whole again, she said softly. It only needed willing hands and patience and the courage to begin without permission. Anya looked down at the golden seams, something shifting quietly inside her own chest. Days later, Devika asked Anya why she had stopped weaving since the trouble began. Anya shrugged. "It doesn't feel right anymore, not until things are made right with Rohan." Devika handed her a small loom, simple and worn, and set it before the fire. "Weave something small," she said, "just for yourself. No one else needs to see it." Anya resisted at first, her fingers stiff from months of silence and untouched thread. Slowly, hesitantly, she began. The first few rows were clumsy, uneven, full of old hesitation. But with each pass of the shuttle, something in her chest loosened just slightly. By nightfall, she had woven a small piece of cloth, imperfect but undeniably entirely hers. She realized her hands had remembered how to create joy, even while her heart still ached. "Your gift was never his to take," Devika said, watching her work by the firelight. "You only believed it was, so you locked it away until he returned to free it." Anya held the small cloth, surprised by how much lighter her shoulders suddenly felt. Weeks later, Devika sent Anya to the village market to trade cloth for supplies. There, she overheard two women whispering about her, about Rohan, about the old falling out. The old Anya would have frozen, cheeks burning, rushing home to hide from their words. Instead, she paused, breathed, and simply continued choosing vegetables from the wooden stall. The whispers did not vanish, but they no longer reached the deepest part of her. She noticed something curious. Their words could only sting if she still needed their approval. On her way home, she passed Rohan's family stall, his father nodding politely from a distance. Her chest tightened briefly, an old habit, but she kept walking, kept her pace steady. She realized she no longer needed him to apologize before she allowed herself this peace. That night, she told Devika about the market, proud of how calm she had remained. Devika nodded. The whispers were always there. You simply stopped feeding them your silence. Anya understood, slowly, that her healing had never required anyone else's permission or words. Drop in the comments, when was the last time you let go of needing someone's approval? One quiet evening, Anya sat with parchment and ink, determined to write Rohan a letter. She wanted to demand the apology she had waited so long and so painfully for. Word by word, her anger poured onto the page, sharp and raw and long overdue. She read it back, expecting relief, but instead felt the old ache return, sharp and tired. Devika found her staring at the unfinished letter, ink drying slowly in the evening light. "What are you hoping this letter will give you that you cannot give yourself?" she asked. Anya opened her mouth to answer, then closed it, the question landing deeper than expected. She realized she wanted the letter to prove she had been right and he wrong, but being right had never once made the empty path outside her door feel less lonely. She folded the letter quietly, deciding to keep it unsent as a private record of growth. True wisdom is not found in books. It lives in the moments we almost gave up. That night, she slept differently, lighter, as though she had set something heavy gently down. Drop in the comments, have you ever written words you needed to say just for yourself? The village prepared for the Festival of Lights, when every home glowed with paper lanterns. Aanya returned from the forest for the celebration, her loom cloth wrapped carefully under her arm. Across the square, she saw Rohan laughing among friends, seemingly untouched by their old rift. For a moment, old anger flared, how easily he seemed to have moved past what he'd done. She almost turned to leave, but Devika's voice echoed quietly in the back of her mind. She stayed instead, lighting her own lantern, watching it rise slowly into the darkening sky. Rohan noticed her across the crowd, his smile faltering, uncertain whether to approach or stay away. He did not come. The apology she had once needed so badly simply did not arrive. And strangely, watching her lantern drift higher, Aanya found she no longer needed it to. Her peace, she realized, was not waiting on his courage. It had quietly become her own. She smiled softly, releasing a breath she felt she had been holding for almost a year. The night did not end in reconciliation, but it ended, for the first time, in rest. Drop in the comments, has someone's silence ever taught you more than their apology could have? Days after the festival, Aanya walked alone to the river where it had all begun. The same water, the same stones, the same quiet place she once trusted with her dreams. She sat at the water's edge, watching it move steadily, never once waiting for anything. Rivers do not pause for apologies, she thought. They simply continue toward the sea. She wondered if forgiveness was less like a gift exchanged and more like a current released, not something given by one person to another, but something that simply flowed, once allowed. She picked up a small stone, the same kind she and Rohan once skipped as children. She threw it into the water, watching the ripples spread outward, then fade into stillness. With it, she let go of something she had been clutching for far too long now. It wasn't forgiveness for him exactly. It was freedom for herself, long overdue and quiet. Walking back toward the forest, her steps felt lighter than they had in nearly a year. She realized she had stopped checking the village path each morning for his approaching figure. Drop in the comments, what would it feel like to release something without needing closure first? One evening, Aanya asked Devika if she had ever waited for someone's apology herself. Devika was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly, her eyes drifting to the fire. Once, long ago, my own sister wronged me deeply in ways I will not retell tonight. I waited 20 years for words that never came, certain I could not heal without them. Anya's breath caught. 20 years felt impossibly long, far longer than her own quiet year. What changed? Aanya asked softly, leaning closer toward the old woman's weathered, knowing face. I grew tired of waiting, Devika said simply. So tired, I finally chose myself instead. The moment I stopped needing her words, I found I already held everything I needed. Aanya realized then why Devika understood her pain so completely, so gently, without judgment. She was not simply a wise stranger. She was someone who had walked this same road. You taught me to mend the bowl, Aanya said. Did you ever mend things with her? Devika smiled, a little sadly. Not with her, but I mended myself. That was enough. Drop in the comments, do you know someone who finally healed without ever getting their apology?
Months passed in the forest, the seasons turning gently from autumn into winter's quiet hush. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, Aanya awoke with unusual clarity in her chest. She walked outside, the cold air sharp and clean, the village visible far below the hill. She thought of Rohan, of the lie, of the year she had spent waiting by her door. She thought of the bowl, golden seamed and whole, mended by her own patient hands alone. She thought of the small cloth she had woven, imperfect, true, and entirely her own again. She thought of the river, the stone, the ripples that had carried her old anger away. She thought of Devika's 20 years and the freedom that finally came without an apology. Standing there, watching the sun rise gold over the distant rooftops, something settled deep within her. She did not need Rohan's words anymore. She had already given herself everything she needed. The waiting, she understood now, had only ever been a door she alone could close. She turned back toward Devika's hut, her heart steady, her breath calm, her decision made. It was time to return to the village, not for an apology, but simply to live again. She packed her small loom, her mended bowl, and walked down the hill toward home. As Aanya walked back into the village, the morning light spread gold across every rooftop. Villagers looked up from their work, surprised to see her after so many quiet months. She did not search the crowd for Rohan's face, did not brace for his apology, and in that moment, everything changed. Not because anything outside her had, but because she had. She finally understood what the world had been trying to teach all along, gently, patiently, that healing was never a debt owed to her by someone else's courage or shame. It was a gift she had the power to give herself the moment she chose to. She passed her old home, the loom inside now silent, the threads gathered in soft dust. She would weave again, not to prove anything, but simply because it was hers to do. Near the well, she finally saw Rohan, standing still, watching her walk through the square. He opened his mouth, as though searching for words he had carried for an entire year. She met his eyes, calm and unafraid, no longer waiting for what he might say next. "I'm sorry," he finally said, his voice breaking slightly under the weight of long silence. Aanya smiled softly. "Thank you, but I want you to know I had already forgiven you." His eyes widened, surprised. "Without this? Without me saying it?" he asked, almost in disbelief. "Some gifts only come wrapped in hardship," she said. "This was mine, and I already opened it." She did not need his apology to feel whole. She had already become whole without it. His words, when they finally came, were no longer the key to her freedom, just kindness. She walked on toward her old home, lighter, freer, carrying her healing in her own two hands. Behind her, Rohan stood quietly in the golden morning light, watching the friend he had wronged walk free. This is the story of Aanya, the weaver who learned to heal without waiting for sorry. Perhaps you too are standing at your own well, waiting for words that may never come. If this story spoke to something quiet inside you, you are not alone in this feeling. Join the seekers who gather here each week, searching for the same gentle, hard-won wisdom. Comment below. What would change in your life the moment you stopped waiting for sorry?